NBA, some NBA draft reaction from the NBA draft last Thursday, and then a little look ahead at the NBA offseason. So NBA draft happened last Thursday. No huge surprises. Victor Wembanyama did go number 1 to the San Antonio Spurs. That
no surprise there.
As expected. And, that'll be obviously the biggest story coming out of this draft. But I've got 3 of my favorite picks / favorite fits from the draft. Some guys and some teams I want to highlight that I'm kind of intrigued on as we walked away from Thursday's draft. And I want to start, Mitch, not at number 1 with Victor Wembanyama, but at number 2 with the Charlotte Hornets selecting Brandon Miller, the forward out of Alabama. I think this is so interesting. We wake up Thursday morning and Shams Charania, the NBA insider, is tweeting out, Charlotte is leaning towards Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson, the guard from G League Ignite, who was largely expected to be the number 2 guy for a lot of the draft process. Day of the draft, it's like, all right, everything's leaning towards Scoot. Betting market's leaning towards Scoot. And you know what I tweeted out, Mitch? I tweeted out a little joke from Pokemon, a little Pokemon in attack using the attack smokescreen, because that's exactly what that was. And we saw this last year, and I learned this lesson last year myself. Last year on draft day, the talk was Jabari Smith is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Chet Holmgren will go number 2, and Paolo Banchero will go to number 3, right? It was like definitive. That morning we woke up and it was like, all right, this is going to be it. And then what happened? It was Paolo number 1. It's all smokescreen. Like, you can't believe the stuff that gets posted the morning of the draft. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, the pick is Brandon Miller at number 2. And it was. And it's where it should be, in my opinion. I think Scoot's a great player, but when you have LaMelo Ball on this team, you need to add some wings, some offense around him that he can work with. Taking the ball out of his hands, putting it into a player like Scoot Henderson's hands, just limiting the type of impact that LaMelo can have. So I love complimenting him with Brandon Miller. I think he's going to be a fantastic player. Does he have huge upside in the NBA? Probably not. But he's going to be everything you need him to be and fits what this team already has. So I like this pick. It was the right pick at number 2 with Brandon Miller, the forward out of Alabama. And I think the Hornets added a very solid player to the building blocks that they already have there.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, gotta love a guy out of Alabama. Roll damn Tide. But, big, lengthy guy, 6'9", a guy that's a great defender on the perimeter and a great shooter as well. He's not quite a Kevin Durant type. Obviously doesn't have all that skill set that Kevin Durant has. But in the relationship of him being a taller wing type player, he definitely fits that mold. So I thought this was a great fit for Charlotte. And what's not to like about an Alabama guy? What's not to like?
There you go. I think like Paul George. That's kind of what I see with Brandon Miller. Very similar size. If he could get to like that level in the NBA, you'd be really happy, obviously, at the number 2 pick. So, Brandon Miller. The next one, we're just going to go down a little bit to the 5th pick here. The second of the Thompson twins to get selected, the younger of the Thompson twins by about 5 minutes, Asar Thompson, the guard out of Overtime Elite. His brother, Amen, got drafted at number 4 overall to the Houston Rockets. Asar goes back-to-back there at number 5 to the Detroit Pistons. Both these guys are very intriguing. Played at Overtime Elite, which is a very unique basketball league with a unique set of rules. It's hard to sort of, scout very much from them based on the play. But what they look like and their abilities are pretty clear. It's a high upside bet on both these guys. What I like about Asar is how he fits with this Detroit Pistons team, right? Who already has Cade Cunningham, who already has Jaden Ivey, 2 guys that need the ball in their hands, need to move this offense around, or especially Cade Cunningham. So what do? You add Asar Thompson, who is going to add great defensive versatility, 6'7", 200 pounds. He can guard, multiple positions, can guard your best player. That's what you're hoping he becomes. and then a spot up shooter on the outside, feels comfortable with the ball, just does a lot of things really well. Maybe he doesn't have the huge upside, but for a Pistons team that clearly has a star in Cade Cunningham, you're trying to complement that piece really well. And I love Asar Thompson for how he's going to complement the Pistons.
I think we've talked about the last couple of years how young and talented this Pistons team is. It's just a matter of time if they can keep that young core intact. And Thompson is just another addition to this very young core, something that they genuinely need to continue to build upon this youth movement that they have in Detroit right now. So very good ad for Detroit.
Yeah, and they paid a big money contract to Monty Williams, right, as their new head coach to get this building in the right direction, like he has done before, like he showed he was able to do in Phoenix. Adding talented pieces, that's going to help. So, love Asar Thompson there at number 5 to Detroit. The final one, Mitch, a little outside of the lottery, number 18, the Miami Heat, NBA Finals participant. They add some very useful talent to their bench in Jaime Jaquez Jr., the forward from UCLA. You may be familiar with him from the runs that UCLA's had the last couple years in the NCAA tournament if you watch much college basketball. But Jaime Jaquez is just a very smart, experienced player. He's a little bit older, right? So he's not going to go into the lottery. It's like reserved for 19s and 20-year-olds. If you have more than 2 seasons of college basketball, you can't be drafted in the lottery anymore. But Jaquez does everything right. He's smart, hits the outside shots well, can play solid defense, doesn't do one thing particularly well, but that's such a smart pickup for Miami, Mitch. This is a Heat team that's clearly contending, knows what it needs. It needs guys that can come in and compete on a championship roster now. You can't rely on some 19-year-old with no experience to come in and do that. Jaime Jaquez has played in the Final Four. He's made some big runs with UCLA. He's got a lot of college ball under his belt. He can come in and give you valuable minutes immediately. And I love that. Very smart pickup for Miami there at 18.
I think he does do one thing exceptionally well, and that is the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
He does play exceptional defense, 1.5 steals across his 37 games in 2022, 2023. And a great rebounder for an undersized forward. I think he fits this mold exceptionally well. A Draymond type, where you're going to get some great defense out of him. He has the ability to score, but a great defense, a great rebounder, a scrappy type of undersized forward is going to be a great fit for a Miami team whose mold really is kind of smaller and kind of scrappy. So he kind of fits what Miami wants to do right now. Great draft pick by them at number 18.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, NBA draft is always fascinating. Again, the biggest story is going to be Victor Wembanyama. How he looks as a rookie with San Antonio. Is he really this generational talent that he's been touted to be? I mean, I'm believing it. I'm buying the hype. I'm all in. I think Wemby is going to be legit. But again, we shall see. The draft is always exciting, though, Mitch.
Always exciting. Always exciting. Is Wembanyama your easy shoe-in for Rookie of the Year I know we're only a week after the draft, but could you shoe him in as an easy like a way too early pick?
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, unless he doesn't play enough games, I don't think how he wouldn't. Unless he's just pure awful. Just by narrative, people will just vote him in if he looks halfway decent, just because it's Victor Wembanyama. So we'll just give him the vote. I think it's as much of a lock as it could be. Now, again, if he doesn't play very much and he struggles with injury, obviously wouldn't be qualified, then maybe he wouldn't. But keep an eye out this year on Chet Holmgren for Rookie of the Year, Mitch. He sat out his entire rookie year last year, the number 2 pick out of Gonzaga, right, playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Sat out his entire rookie year, so he'll be eligible. This will be his rookie season this season coming up for Chet Holmgren. So, if Chet has a big year, he's going to be in this conversation along with this rookie draft. So just, kind of keep that in mind as he sort of redshirted last year with the injuries he was dealing with. So,
okay.
Yeah,
absolutely. Dallen, so the draft is over. The youth has been selected. It's now getting really close to free agency time. In fact, I think the the free agency period for the NBA opens up on July 1st. That's when you could start. I don't think they can officially sign the contract until July 6th or 7th, but you can agree to contracts during this about week-long window that starts on July 1st. And there are a lot of teams down that we have some questions about moving forward into this free agency period. And I think you should start first. We both picked two teams to talk about. I want you to go first, Alan. What's the team that you are really kind of intrigued to see how they do during this free agency, what they do during this free agency period?
The first one that came to mind, Mitch, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I mentioned Cleveland because they don't like come to mind first for most people when you're thinking of the teams this offseason that have cap space or are going to make a big trade or something. But Brian Windhorst, the NBA insider on ESPN, who was very much on top of, we'll remember him from the famous meme last year, what's going on with the Utah Jazz, right? And he said that like a week before the Gobert trade, right? And the Donovan Mitchell trade that followed. Like he's, had the information sort of teased out there. Hey, kind of keep an eye on Utah. Something's happening. Well, this week on ESPN, Mitch, Brian Windhorst goes on there and says, I'm kind of interested in the Cleveland Cavaliers. I just have a feeling that they're going to do something, that they're just not, content with what's going on right now. So I immediately, I pay attention. I'm like, all right, well, Windy is on this kind of stuff. So you look at Cleveland, right? A solid playoff team. They made the big deal for Donovan Mitchell in the offseason. It gets them to the playoffs. He really elevated his game, top 5 in MVP voting. All right, we feel really good about that. What's going to take us to the next step, though? Darius Garland is going to get traded this offseason, Mitch, and I'm very intrigued to see how that ends up for Cleveland, what they're looking for in return for him, how they're trying to build this team around Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell. But I think Garland is the name to keep an eye on, an all-star guard who's very young, very talented, needs the ball in his hand, redundant to Donovan Mitchell in a lot of ways. So, you got to improve that there, but keep an eye on Darius Garland as a name to watch. And again, who does Cleveland feel like they need to bring in alongside Donovan Mitchell? What kind of player or what specific player do they think they need to bring in? I think that's a team to watch. They're going to make a move in some sort of way, but I think it's around Darius Garland and trading him out for a better piece alongside Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, it almost makes you feel like there's a veteran piece on the way.
Yeah.
Like, they have all the youth around them. They get the veteran piece in there and really make a legitimate push in that playoff run. Cleveland had an outstanding start to the year. I think they were a top 3 seed for almost the first half of the season. Like they had a fantastic first half run. You feel like they're almost there. I think that's definitely a team you should be keeping your eyes on as far as what they're going to be doing moving forward over the next week and a half or so when it comes to free agency.
Yeah. Who do you, what's the first team you got here, Mitch?
I'm going to do a Windy. I'm going to do a Windy here. What's going on in Sacramento?
Ooh.
Something's happening. They pull off the Rashawn Holmes trade on draft night. There's a ton of cap space cleared up. They still have the great core of Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk. They still have that great core, but then they also have like $36 million in cap space to work with. What are they doing? That something is coming down the pipeline, in my mind at least. Something's coming down the pipeline for Sacramento. I don't know if that's to add a defensive piece. Obviously, the defense was the glaring need for Sacramento, right? We know they can score, right? They can score better than anyone else in the league. In fact, I believe they had the highest average points per game above every other team. We know they can score, but can they prevent teams from scoring? Do they go add a defensive piece? Do they add a true big man? Because Sabonis is their big man, and he's playing basically, as a small center. So there's something brewing in Sacramento. I don't know what it is, and they have the money to pull something off, but I really think that I think that this is going to be like, there's going to be a shocking sign I think it's going to be a signing that we're not going to be expecting. You could see a Draymond signing. You could see a Draymond signing somehow coercing him from re-signing over in Golden State. You could see them adding to the offense again and going, hey, if we score 140 a night, who cares if we give up 120, and go and adding Klay Thompson. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces that are going to be happening during free agency, and Sacramento has something brewing. I think they know something no one else does, and they're preparing themselves for that. So they're ones I'm going to keep my eye on.
Yeah, I think Sacramento's a great team too, because it's a team that made a leap, right? They made a leap. They're a top 3 seed. Obviously, they don't get past the first round, but they made that leap they wanted. And now you're looking ahead at how do we get to that next step, right? Okay, we got to this step. Now, how do we get to true contender? How can we win playoff series? How do we change this roster to get there? De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, whatever. But how do we piece it around? And yeah, that might mean that they make some bigger moves, or they try to do something splashy to really elevate it. So I like that. I really like that. Sacramento, definitely a team to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. You got another team?
I do, yeah.
Team. So.
The other team I'm interested in just for very specific reasons is the Phoenix Suns, who obviously already made their big move by trading for Bradley Beal, shipping off Chris Paul and whatever else. Mitch, the Phoenix Suns are $80 million over the cap space, right? They're in the luxury tax currently. And they also have 5 players on their active roster. They have 5 players on this roster. These are the 5 players for you. You've got Kevin Durant, who's making $47 million next year. You've got Bradley Beal, who's making $46 million next year. You've got Devin Booker, who's making $36 million. And DeAndre Ayton, who's making a really affordable $32 million. And then Isaiah Todd, who's making 1.8, who they got in the trade. That is the roster for the Suns right now. They have no money, and they need to sign 8 players. And I'm just very excited to see how the hell they do that. Who do they end up getting on this roster? Who do they dig out of the graves of the NBA, to find to fill this roster? Can they or will they move DeAndre Ayton, right, to balance out the Beal contract and get some assets back and fill the roster a little more? Is he somebody that they could potentially move? I mean, I think Phoenix, again, the Beal thing was the big move, but they're not done. Clearly, they need to fill this roster, and I think even Ayton could be potentially in the mix here. So Phoenix is another one that I'm very intrigued by.
Yeah, they just feel like they handcuffed themselves, right? I mean, it just feels like they have nowhere else to go. And this might be one of those instances, and we've seen it in the past, where like there are really top-heavy teams that have 0 depth.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets them to a 3 or 4 seed. But when it comes to playoff time, they don't have anyone else there. So, you can't play all 5 guys for 48 minutes. You just can't do it. So,
nope.
It's going to be really interesting to see how they fill this roster out. They're going to have to move one of those guys. They're going to have to. I mean, it's just not an option for them. Maybe 2. So, as they probably saw, a rose gold future in front of them and saw, oh my God, we have this starting 5. But yeah, you can't pay anyone else to play behind him though. You can't do it. So you have to cut some losses somewhere. Phoenix is going to be a really interesting one to keep an eye on.
Oh yeah. What's the last team you got here, Mitch?
I got the Miami Heat. I got the Miami Heat, particularly because we haven't brought his name up yet. It's the Dame. It's the Dame situation.
Yeah.
And I think that the Miami Heat would be a great fit for Dame. I think it would be a great thing for Miami to bring in that stone. Could you imagine? I've already talked about how Jimmy Butler is a stone cold killer in the playoffs. And I've talked about how Dame Lillard is a stone cold killer in clutch time. Can you imagine having both of them on the same team?
I wouldn't want to play them. I would not want to play that team.
In a 7-game series, I don't want to run into that team. That is terrifying. And I think that this is I think that if there's going to be a trade that's going to be done, this is probably the most likely situation, is that he goes to Miami. Probably a Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and future
7
picks.
first-round picks. Yeah,
I mean, it's gonna have to be a steep price for Miami to do.
Yeah.
But to get Dame to make that title run that you could have for maybe 2, 3, 4 more years, that's worth it in the end. So, I think the Miami's going to be really, really, really interesting to watch. Maybe not necessarily so much in the free agency side, but how do they get Dame to Miami? I think that's going to be the biggest question mark surrounding the Miami Heat going into this offseason.
Yeah, I love that pick for Miami. It was one of the teams I was considering. And I just think you're looking at a team, Mitch, that has made 2 finals in the past 4 years and has not won. So if you're a front office or you're an ownership, you're sitting there and you're looking at our team and you're like, that's all great, but like, how the hell do we win one of these? What do we got to do to win one? And you're looking around and Dame Lillard, Jaylen Brown, like who is available? Like, can Bradley Beal? I'm sure they explored it. It's like you're looking around saying, how do we just get over? How can we just pull so that the next time we get there, we don't walk away losing again? So yeah, absolutely the team that would say 8 first-round picks for Damian Lillard. Yeah, okay, fine. Well, let's do it because we gotta see this thing through. So I love Miami as a pick because it feels like if there's any team out there most desperate to just kind of push it over the edge, and Miami doesn't operate like this as a franchise, right? They're not a franchise that makes big, desperate, flashy moves that gets rid of the future for the now. Like, they are prudent, a very well-run organization, but you also have to know when to push your chips in. And Jimmy Butler's not getting any younger, and Damian Lillard's not getting any younger if you get him. So if there's a time, now is the time. And so I feel like this probably is the time for Miami to, make a more of an all-in move.
I wouldn't be surprised if of those astronomical amounts of first-round picks that they might have to give up, if 4 of them aren't pick swaps.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or conditional first rounders, they have to, they meet certain standards. So that would probably be something I would imagine Miami's going to offer for Dame to start. But Dame is such a valuable asset that Portland may go, no, if you really want him, you got to come get him, dude. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. And, the noise around Dame in Portland, is he staying? Is he going? Portland is saying all the right things. We want him here. Dame is kind of saying those and also being like, but if I got traded, I would love to go to Miami, So, I mean, it's a weird situation still. And it just feels like there's a lot to be played out here. So, yeah, definitely one of, if not the most interesting situation to watch Dame and specifically that Miami Heat situation. So
absolutely.
Love it, Mitch. All righty. We've got a comment from TP Tanner Percenti. Dame is so underrated. So true. And how great would it be for him to finally get that respect on a national stage, win an NBA finals alongside Jimmy in Miami, and we can finally put to rest any sort of debate around Dame and how good he is and how he compares. Because, just been forgotten up there in the Northwest in Portland.
Dame is our generation's, and I'm throwing a little basketball history out here. He is our generation's Alex English.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Just so underrated for how good he actually was. Because he's played on crappy teams. Alex English played on all his crappy Nuggets teams for all those years, and he was never really fully appreciated for how great of a player he is. Dame, I know he gets the All-Star recognition and everything, and it's a different voting system than it was back then, but he is our generation's Alex English. He is one of the all-time greats, just exceptionally underappreciated and underrated.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great it's a great comp there, Mitch. That's gonna do it for NBA stuff. It's fitting that we had a comment there from our good friend Tanner Piseni, the Italian Stallion, because we got a little listener mailbag today, and it did come from the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tanner Piseni. So we're gonna play this mailbag and You know, we've been asking for these for so long, and we've gotten a couple over the years. It's been a minute since we got a mailbag and a question we get to answer. So we're very excited for this, and thank you, Tanner, for sending it in. So let's hear it now first.
Yo, boys, Tanner P, the Italian Stallion here. Kind of got a fun question for you. If you had 20 playing time minutes in a WNBA game, how many rebounds do you think you could have? And maybe how many points do you think you could score? All right, boys. See ya.
All righty. So again, thank you, Tanner. The question is, if you had 20 minutes of playing time in a WNBA game, how many rebounds do we think we could get? And how many points, if any, we could potentially score? Do you want to go?
So let's just make our slash line here. Like, let's just build our slash line.
Do you want to go first here? Or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So I think I can hit a 3. I think I can hit a 3.
Okay.
I don't think I could drive on him. I don't think I could drive
Absolutely not. Okay.
No. So I'm going to have to be perimeter. So I'm going to give myself one foul line opportunity.
Okay.
So I'll say 4.
So you make 1 3 and you go 1 for 2 from the free throw line.
Yeah. And then I'll go.
Okay.
I think I get 2 boards.
Wow. Okay.
I think I get 2 boards. I don't know how many assists I can get though. You know, that's
a dependent stat. Yeah, that's hard to predict. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I get 4 points, 2 boards in 20 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Well.
Okay.
No, I'm gonna stick with that.
All right.
Yeah.
Mitch. All right. This is okay. So first off, I am saying I will say 0 points, but I'm gonna give a caveat for the free throw thing, because if I got fouled and got to the free throw line, I could make 1.
Yeah, you could.
Line, right? Yeah. Like I could go 50%. I feel confident enough in my shooting abilities there. But I don't play enough basketball from the perimeter to feel confident in hitting open threes, especially in a game against people. So like I don't feel confident in suggesting I can hit an open perimeter shot. Absolutely not going down low. So here's the thing. I did my research on this, because I'm like, if we're gonna, get this question, I'm gonna, what's the average height of a WNBA player, right? Like, is it, how am I competing? Because in the NBA, those guys are huge, right? I just like obviously have no shot. But what's the difference? The average height of a WNBA player is about 6 foot, right? Okay, but the average forward in the WNBA is like 6'4", 6'5". The average guard is like 5'8", 5'9", right? Obviously, so a big difference there. So again, if we're driving down to the paint, Mitch, you and I have, I'm 6 foot 230, right? Like I have no shot in the paint against 6'4", 6'5" basketball players, regardless of whoever they are. They're just gonna own my shit. So I'm not getting any points down low, and I'm gonna give myself 1 rebound, because every now and again, the ball gets
down the ball.
The ball gets a weird bounce off the rim. You could box out all you want, and sometimes the ball just bounces right towards somebody. So I'm gonna get 1 of those in my rotation.
I find this interesting.
I'm going 0 points, 1 rebound, and maybe 1 assist, because I'm always looking to pass the rock. So I'm gonna get lucky and get 1 of those.
I find this interesting that we're both playing the anomaly game. Like,
I happen
to get an open 3 and then happen to get fouled, and I think I can hit 1 free throw.
Yeah. I think that suffice it to say, obviously we wouldn't feel confident in our abilities against WNBA players, because
no, they're still professional athletes. I mean,
and it's not like we're tall and very athletic men ourselves, so it's not like we've got that going for us.
I was athletic 8 years ago.
But like Mitch, we graduated high school a long time ago. It
was a while ago since I've been athletic. But I think I would count on the anomaly thing.
Yeah,
I could very easily go 0s across the slash line. Like, and probably that happens 95% of the time. But in a best case scenario,
20 minutes.
I hit a 3.
20 minutes is a decent amount of time.
Boards.
So maybe we're not giving ourselves enough credit, in that time. Could we get up 4 open shots? Maybe. How open? I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah,
a
we
lot of
gotta have
wingspan there.
some good. I gotta have some good picks set.
It's tough. All right, Tanner. Tanner's weighed in. He asked the question. He says, I'm going 2 points, 5 rebounds,
5 boards.
He followed it up with maybe fewer rebounds, actually. So
5 boards.
Appreciate it. But I see, we're all on the same page. Like maybe 1 bucket, right? Maybe 1 bucket and a couple boards, because rebounds are a little fluky, you know. You can grab those, they bounce out, you know, get some offensive rebounds, maybe defense. Yeah, so I like that. Thanks for the question, Tanner. That was great.
Thank you. And guys, be more like Tanner and leave us more questions like this. So make sure that you get a hold of us. Leave a question, and we are more than happy to debate this, answer this live on the podcast.